Good morning, everybody. My name is Nathan Perkins Rock, and I'll be playing the role of the pastor today. Thank you. So I'm currently a senior at Shawnee Mission East High School, and as some of you know, my family moved here from New York City when I was entering the 4th grade. And people ask me all the time how I handled that crazy transition from the busiest city in the world to, well, Kansas. But honestly, I didn't spend a lot of time getting accustomed. The one thing that I remember worrying about, though, was finding friends in this new place. Luckily, I was able to slide into a friend group after a few weeks of sitting alone at lunch, and everything was good from there. I've always felt my most comfortable around other people, so finding that baseline meant everything. Once that was settled, getting used to Kansas was easy. I found new hobbies and activities I enjoyed. I joined a basketball team and a soccer team. Life was good. Obviously, there were difficult stretches, but I was always a happy kid. That attitude extended even into high school, where I learned you could be friends with almost anyone, and life got even better. It is interesting, though, that this period of extended happiness faced its most crippling opponent when I was about to enter my senior year of high school, where, theoretically, I would be on top of the food chain. This shift took place right at the end of my tenure as a junior. When that school year came to an end, so did a lot of things. I'd been in a relationship since the previous summer, and I'd become dependent on that person's company. My fear of any degree of loneliness had been quenched with a text or a phone call whenever I needed it, and in the days following our breakup, I found it increasingly difficult to live without. What I also hadn't realized was that a repercussion of spending all my time with this one person was that I hadn't kept up with any of my other friends. There was no one I could text or talk to about the pain I was feeling, a pain that would have been otherwise completely manageable if shared. I found myself spending most of the opening weeks of summer in my room. I no longer reached out to anyone to make plans because I assumed they already had them. My sense of self was beginning to be cloudy. The things that I liked and the things that used to bring me joy didn't affect me anymore. I was no longer the person I thought I was, and that feeling is incredibly scary. Those thoughts and the pain that I had were left only to my conscience, which was far too weak to process them at that moment. This pain led to episodes of panic late at night, where my chest would tense and I would struggle to breathe. I was not mature enough then to know how to handle myself or resolve my issues. There was no one there for me to vent to, no one to give advice or suggest resolutions. No one to tell me that punching a concrete wall doesn't solve anything, and it actually hurts a lot worse than you would think. My reaction to this situation is far from uncommon, and I got past that stage way easier than most do. Loneliness and isolation in adolescent life are inherent nowadays. Find the most popular, gifted, funny kid anywhere, and I can guarantee you that they have felt isolated from their peers at some point. I'm only here talking to you because I was the first to volunteer out of the youth group, and I also like to talk. My point is, every kid has a story, including the kids who are part of Second Presbyterian. We all deal with our fears, insecurities, anxiety, and periods of depression in different ways. Some, like me, turn inward and isolate ourselves in our loneliness. Some youth lean on drugs to make sense of their pain. Some kids hide it behind an overly optimistic facade. So with that being said, I'd like to bring up my friend Emily to share with you her story and how she's dealt with things.
Hi, my name is Emily Pattison Kroh. I'm a freshman at St. Teresa's Academy, and I'm struggling with an eating disorder. So I made a couple of videos. The first one is about how I spread awareness, and the second one is about my story. The second video was made a year ago, so it's not completely accurate to today, but it's mostly accurate. And this first video is fills you in a little bit on how my journey has been going so far.
My name is Emily, and I'm a dancer. I'm an athlete, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. I'm struggling with an eating disorder. My eating disorder isn't who I am, but at times that's what it feels like. I am only 15, and my entire life is based around calories and the number on the scale. I am obsessed with the way I look. I try so hard to focus on other things, but sometimes I just can't do it. I have gone through many different treatments to try to help, but sometimes my eating disorder is still in control. When I was in 8th grade, I decided to spread awareness for my disease. I started by working on my silver award for Girl Scouts. I planned Eating Disorder Awareness Week for my middle school and created a video about my eating disorder. I shared this video with the school, and the response was mostly positive. There were a few kids who bullied me, but that had been going on all year, so I didn't even bat an eye. The counselor's office was filled with my peers looking for help and answers that they never thought they would find. I decided I needed to continue to make a difference. I have turned my eating disorder, my biggest struggle, into something beautiful. I am still looking for ways to further the awareness, but I am very proud of how far I've come. I have the most amazing support group of friends and family and loved ones who treat my eating disorder as what it is, a lifelong disease that I have to learn to live with. All of my friends have been so supportive, and I can't thank them enough.
My name is Emily Pattison Kroh. I have been dancing and going to school since I was just 3 years old. I remember pushing myself to be as good as I can be for as long as I can remember. Until about 6th grade, I never let anything get in my way. None of people's comments meant anything to me, even though they'd been saying them to me since I was in 2nd grade. I remember people telling me I was too heavy or I wasn't pretty enough, and that hurt. In 6th grade, I started to struggle with my body image. I started to slowly cut off my food intake, and at one point I completely stopped eating. I went to a doctor and they did lots of blood and heart tests. They told me that I had anorexia, and I also had a very low blood pressure along with the slow heart rate. They said that if I didn't start eating, things were going to progress and I would end up living in a hospital or worse, not living at all. I went to treatment every week, if not twice a week, and it sucked missing that much school. I wouldn't eat. I refused it. So they took me out of dance, my only outlet, the way I could express myself without any judgment from anybody. It sucked, but that was my motivation to eat again. So I did. I tried my hardest. I pushed myself, and by that summer, I was ready to dance again. I joined a new team, and I was so happy, until school started again. I stopped eating after people started making new comments about my weight and how I was too ugly to do anything. And it got to me. Round 2. So I go back to treatment at a new doctor. They took my blood test again and my heart, and they told me what I never wanted to hear. You have relapsed. My eating disorder was back. No dance. I didn't want to be taken out. I enjoy dance more than anything, and now I couldn't do it. People wanted me to eat, but other people kept making comments. A couple of times, I've been placed in group chats where they just started attacking me for fun. They said it was a joke or that it just didn't matter at all, but it mattered to me, and it hurt. I didn't want to eat. I couldn't. It felt impossible. My weight kept dropping, and I was happy about it. Until my doctor said I was going to be put on a feeding tube, and I wouldn't be able to leave the hospital. Then I started to eat again. I didn't want to be on a feeding tube. I felt so alone, like there was no one to talk to, and if I was put in the hospital, that would make things worse. It hurt. Today, I still struggle with a lack of self-confidence. I used to be one of the most confident people, and now I have some of the worst body images of anybody I've ever met. I still want to get better, but I still don't want to eat. I need to dance. I would like to thank my parents for putting me in the best treatment I could be in, and all my friends for being there when I needed them the most, even though some people shied away when things got too hard. I always had people behind me. A huge thank you to my role model, Ashley Boo, the girl I look up to. I wouldn't have gotten better without her, and even though eating is still hard, I will still push myself to get better.
Thank you. So just a little update. I recently graduated from a 10-hour treatment program. I was there 7 days a week for 10 hours a day, and I'm doing much better now. And Eating Disorder Awareness Week is actually this week. I'm very excited. And if you have any questions on how you can help spread awareness, just let me know. Thank you.
That's a beautiful story, right? It's truly inspiring, and that's action towards a solution. Emily's doing a great job. And it's easy to support someone like Emily because you can see the problem clearly, and she's passionate about making a change. But not everyone is as strong as her, and not all parents or adults are as understanding and supportive. In fact, a lot of adults tend to be skeptical of the increasing conversation of teen depression and anxiety when there isn't a clear issue to name, like in the video we just watched. And I know some people try to put it in perspective and say it's a product of the snowflake millennials or the age of PC language and oversensitivity, but clearly that's not helpful and it's not true. The way I was raised and the way my parents were raised are not comparable at all on this issue. Every adult has obviously been my age at some point, but no one over the age of 30 can relate to the type of anxiety and isolation that youth today feel. The constant connection and comparisons that social media brings to our lives is brand new. The rise of this platform has dramatically changed the way kids view each other. Growing up, my mom and dad dealt with social pressure like every generation of youth before them, but that pressure was to be cool compared to the kid down the block. Your school and your neighborhood were the extent of your social life, and kids around you were the only people you could compare yourself to. Today, kids are comparing themselves not only against the cool or good-looking kids in school, but the idealized version of their peers on social media, and in addition, the elites of beauty and fashion and talent and fame across the world. Kids are being given this tool of social media without much restriction, and the struggle to seem as happy or as cool as everyone else on the app is not only destructive, but it's fake. It's so easy for kids to fall into cycles of depression and anxiety, and there are precious few ways to fight against it. I can speak for the youth when I say that we're past the you'll get over it or just suck it up solutions. Less than a year ago, a 7th grader at the middle school I went to took his own life. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for people between the ages of 10 and 24. The second leading cause of death. Every day in our nation, there are an average of over 3,041 attempts of suicide by young people grades 9 to 12. This is no longer a personal or political issue. This is a national crisis. Isolation is no longer confined to those people who don't fit in, because compared to everyone else, no one fits in anymore. The standards now for social acceptance continue to become increasingly difficult and varied, to the point of being and feeling entirely unachievable. So how does one fight a bacteria like social media that we consume so willingly? Because without this device or the school-issued laptop, I honestly cannot function. I can't do my homework. I can't do my job. My life is dependent on this constant interconnectedness that is also completely overwhelming. There is no step-by-step plan to create change. There is no game book. There is only love and concern. And you know what's a great tool to reference how to love and care effectively? This book. So I'd like to read a little verse. I'm going to read Luke chapter 5, verses 17 to 21. So if you want to follow along, you can, but it's kind of a short passage, so it might not be worth it. Okay. One day when Jesus was teaching, Pharisees and legal experts were sitting nearby. They had come from every village in Galilee and Judea and from Jerusalem. Now the power of the Lord was with Jesus to heal. Some men were bringing a man who was paralyzed, lying on a cot. They wanted to carry him in and place him before Jesus, but they couldn't reach him because of the crowd. So they took him up on the roof and lowered him, cot and all, through the roof tiles into the crowded room in front of Jesus. When Jesus saw the faith, he said, "Friends, your sins are forgiven." Jesus is not the main focus of this story. If we had a magical someone or something to heal and help like Jesus did when he was here on earth, there would be no need for action on our part. But we don't have that. We have each other. We are the hands of God. You and I are the friends in this story. If we can, like my dad has talked about, treat the mental and social issues of the youth like we treat their injuries, we can work towards improvement. In times of struggle, community is the best remedy. But we can't put the responsibility to seek out safe spaces on the 12-year-old with depression. The responsibility is on us. I think it's safe for you to assume that every kid is struggling, because if they aren't, then they have. In my personal situation, the church played a big part of my recovery. The mission trip we took last year had such a large impact on my mental state that I wrote an essay about it for my college submissions. You guys are already doing a lot for youth in this church. Just being here and accepting and open is one of the best actions you can take to reach kids. What I'm asking is that you carry that over into your everyday lives. Listen to kids when they're talking. Ask them how they're doing and how you can help them. And even if you feel a little bit skeptical, believe them. Let them know you believe them. The best tool a kid can have who is struggling is someone to vent to. Be someone who is willing to tear through a roof to help someone else feel loved or cared for. Our phones are powerful tools, so is the Bible, and so are you. So I'll leave you with a phrase that is only not offensive in this context. Go be a tool. Thank you.